Hi class, welcome to the Understanding the Performance Assessment Project video. This video will help you understand your next major assignment in the class, which is coming up quickly. The draft of this project is due next week on April 12th, but the final is due in 2 weeks, April 19th, and it counts for 15% of your grade. One thing you should know is that we will be submitting our drafts on the discussion board for feedback from our student colleagues. I find this is a very helpful practice to help look at how other people approach this project and also for your colleagues to give you feedback. I will be giving you feedback in your final submission, and of course you may revise and resubmit. So you can actually do this project 3 times if you want to try to keep improving your submission. This video will not talk about the discussion board anymore, but just remember that it is due, the draft is due next week. You'll be given a little bit of time next week, additional time to work on it. So try to get started on it this week, but if you can't get it done this week, you'll be given a little more time next week. Everything we're going to be talking about is, as usual, in the assignments folder on the course site. If you click in the assignments folder, you will see the performance assessment project folder. And so we're going to go in there and see what materials are in there. Inside that folder, you'll find the instructions and template. With some other assignments in the course, you should do the assignment right on the template, not on a blank document. You'll find the rubric for grading and the link to submit, as well as a link for this video. So here we have the start of the instructions template. As I said before, the draft is due on the discussion board next week, April 12th, and then the final is due to be submitted using the link in the folder by April 19th. It's worth 15% of your grade. So the first thing you're going to do is select a standard from the standards folder on the course homepage. Remember, this has to be at 2nd grade or higher. And the reason for that is you're actually going to design a student rubric, and students need to be able to read the rubric, otherwise it's developmentally inappropriate. So just like your quiz assignment, this should be done at 2nd grade or higher. So in your template, you're going to do your work right on your template, and so you're going to put the standard there and the grade level appropriate that's aligned with the standard. Then you're going to come up with a learning target that aligns with your standard. Recall that a learning target is one that it's like an objective, but it has a target for success. So with 80% accuracy might be a target that you could use. Next, think about the context. Where will you teach this unit or lessons? What grade level? How many students? Are there any gifted students, students with IEPs or 504 plans? What subject will this be in? What will they have studied first? And what will come next? And then you're going to describe a lesson or lessons that you might use to cover the learning target. You don't have to develop a whole lesson plan, but in a few paragraphs describe the lesson or lessons leading up to covering the learning target itself. Next, and this is the real meat of the assignment, think of a performance task students might use to demonstrate they have mastered the learning target. So this shouldn't just be, I'm going to give them a quiz. A performance task is something they have to do to show that they've mastered a performance learning target. So, for example, if you're asking them to learn how to tie their shoes, then you have to have a performance task where they tie their shoes, and you have to have something to assess whether they know how to do that. Examples of performance tasks include writing essays, developing PowerPoints, writing poetry, solving math, and more, but they must perform. It should be sufficiently complex to warrant a rubric, not something you can grade by simply marking answers right or wrong. So you're going to describe that performance task. Next, you're going to develop two rubrics to assess the performance task. One is a teacher rubric and one is a student rubric. So what's the difference between these two? Well, the teacher rubric is for you to use to score the performance task. And the student rubric is you translating that score into a kid-friendly student rubric and giving that to the students. So important things to understand about the teacher rubric: it should be well suited to the task and the grade level. The criteria in the rubrics should be well aligned with the learning target or objectives and the standards. The descriptions of criteria are teachable, identifiable, and measurable. And the continuum between the levels, so what constitutes an excellent, what constitutes an on task, or an on level rather, what constitutes a below level, for example. The most common mistake that students make when they're designing their teacher rubric is they don't, well, two common mistakes. They don't clearly distinguish between those two levels, or they weight the levels too much towards things that aren't content oriented. For example, if you're doing an essay and you want students to write an essay on manatees, and you weight too heavily, and we've talked about this in the course, the writing component, you could wind up with students who really understand a lot about manatees and have mastered content, but score poorly because they just don't know how to write. So make sure the things that are not content specific, like writing, you can include them, just weight them less heavily unless writing is what you're assessing, and then that's different. The student rubric should be aligned with your teacher rubric, but this time it should be kid-friendly and written in an age-appropriate language. So for example, if you're doing second grade, use easy breakdown words. Some elementary students, teachers like to use smiley faces instead of point values, so make that adjustment as necessary. You're going to run a Flesch-Kincaid reading level on your student rubric and enter that grade there. You're going to write a justification, sorry about that, in which you support your choices for the rubric. So if you use an analytic or a holistic rubric, you're going to say why you chose this type of rubric, and you're going to specifically cite from your textbook the reasons why you chose an analytic or a holistic. You may use either type of rubric, but you've got to justify it and cite from your textbook to receive full credit. Finally, you're going to write a reflection about this experience, and just like in other assignments, a reflection is different than a conclusion. Think about what you learned, what went well, what did not go well, what surprised you, and what will you take into your own classroom from this assignment. Inside the folder on the course site, you'll also find the grading rubric. I won't go over everything, but you can look and see exactly how your project's going to be graded. Any questions? Please feel free to email me at nhalbrenner@mercy.edu or through the course site. Thanks, everybody.